everyone. Today we're going to have a look at the SDQ, the Strengths and Difficulties Questionnaire. So sometimes we get asked, okay, how can I measure social, emotional and mental health needs in students in school? And the answer is you can actually use the SDQ. Very often when I tell people they can use that, I get the answer, well, I don't have that, CAMS have that, I don't have access to it. Well, that's wrong. It's on a website and it's free and you can use it. So you could use this to work with your students who have SEMH. You can use it not to assess them and diagnose, but perhaps to find out where their strengths and their difficulties lie, then to put something in place and then to do it again to get a measure of whether or not what you put in place actually worked. It's really simple and easy to use. It is a questionnaire. There's one that your teacher can fill in, or you as the SENCO perhaps, and there's also a version that parents can fill in. And I really like it because it's available in lots of different languages. There aren't many tools out there where it's already been translated for us into all those languages that we approach in schools. So this is really great for that. Okay, so this is the Youth in Mind website where you can find the Strengths and Difficulties Questionnaire. So www.youthinmind.com. It will take you automatically to this page. And the SDQ is sitting there for us, but when you scroll down this one, you don't actually realise straight away that there is a paper-based version available. It makes you think I've got to log into this SDQ Plus and do it that way. Well, actually, if you scroll a little further back up the screen, you'll see there is one here that says download paper-based SDQ. If you give that one a click, it opens up this page here with all of those SDQs in the different languages available. So we have got on there, in alphabetical order, Afrikaans and Albanian. Here's our English UK, and going down we've got things like Romanian and Polish, Vietnamese, Welsh, and please don't make me pronounce some of those down towards the bottom. So I have clicked on English UK, and again that opens up this screen here, and on this screen here I have got some options. So this can be used with 2 to 4 year olds. We then have a version for 4 to 17 year olds, and then we have a version for 18 years plus. So this one doesn't have an impact supplement on it. It is literally just the SDQ, the questions that are on there. The versions underneath are what we call double-sided, and there's a parent version and a teacher version, and there's also a student version if you want your students to actually have their own voice. That's just available for 11 to 17 year olds and 18 plus. And you click on that and it will open up that PDF file for you with the questions, but also with a sheet on the back that asks some of that contextual stuff that might explain some of the answers. And there's also a follow-up version. So, you know, once you've done it to get your baseline, perhaps you might be looking at some later data as well that would sit within there. The scoring instructions are down at the bottom. And we've got scoring overlays, and we've also got the answers down there too. Up at the top there, a couple of buttons for downloading the different bits and pieces, so you can click on those, and it talks about the other types of questionnaires that you might use. I don't have the qualification to be able to use any of the others, and I doubt many SENCOs do. There's some articles associated with it, and if you wanted some norms, so some normal ranges of what you could expect, they are available too. Bear in mind that they are percentiles, so you are looking for scores within the normal percentile range, as opposed to looking at standard scores. So let's have a look at some of those actual documents. So this is a Strengths and Difficulties questionnaire. This is just the questionnaire without the impact statement. We pop the child's name at the top, pretty obvious, their gender and their date of birth. And we've got some statements, and they are not true, somewhat true, certainly true. So in theory you could sit on the fence a little bit and just go down the middle, but hopefully we're not going to do that. We're going to really look at things. So they're grouped, but don't worry about that in terms of filling it in. So you look at it and you go, okay, is this child considerate of other people's feelings? Is that not true, somewhat true, or certainly true? And my way of filling this in is I've always tried to think of an example. So I might have another piece of paper at the side, and if I can write down 3 examples, then it's probably certainly true. If I can't think of anything at all, then it's not true. Restless, overactive, cannot stay still for long. I could say my 2-year-old very definitely is certainly true, but that's kind of quite common for a 2-year-old, I would guess. He also zonks out and is a zombie for 3 days. So, we have to look at it in context as much as anything. Do they complain of headaches, stomach aches, sickness? Do they share readily? Are they solitary? Are they nervous or clingy? Do they easily lose confidence? Do they lie or cheat? Are they picked on or bullied by other children? And somewhere you'll find one where it talks about them bullying others, so often fights with other children or bullies them. So we've got that opposite flip side of things. And in theory, the child could do both. They might fight with other children or bully them, and they might also be picked on and bullied by other children. Do they get on better with adults than children? And then it's just a little bit down at the bottom to kind of sign and say who filled this particular piece of paper in. So that is the very simple SDQ. If you want to, like I said, there is a impact statement version. So this is the parent one, and it's the same questions, just phrased slightly differently. So C's task through to the end, good attention span. Do you have any comments or concerns? That's quite an open-ended box, but it's very useful. And then underneath we've got some more check boxes, if you like, and can we add bits to it? So do we think our child has difficulties in one or more of the areas? Yes, minor, definite or severe. And parents tend to err on the diagnostic side of these things, so they will always think things are probably slightly worse than they actually are, or maybe they are actually slightly worse at home than what we really see in school. We wouldn't know, but we do tend to see they think of it as severe, whereas we think of it as perhaps definite or minor difficulties. But you can look at that disparity as well and perhaps discuss those differences. How long have the difficulties been present? Do they upset or distress the child? Do they interfere with everyday life? And do they put a burden on the family as a whole? And again, we get that signature and the date and just collect that information. With the teacher version, pretty much the same, but this time we're looking at the overall impact in that year group or within that class group. So how long have they been present? Do they upset the child within school? Do they interfere with their everyday life, this time in peer relationships and classroom learning? And do these difficulties put a burden on you as the teacher or the class as a whole, as opposed to do they put a burden on the family as a whole? So we take all of that information together and we take it along to the scoring sheet. And when we go to the scoring sheet, we've got those statements there. So item number 3, it's a bit of an odd way of marking it. There is actually an overlay you can use that shows you these. So item number 3, 8, 13, 16 and 24 are all to do with emotional problems. So getting headaches, worrying a lot, unhappy, nervous, fears. And if they have marked it as not true on this particular example, they get 0s. If it's somewhat true, they get 1s. And if it's certainly true, they get a score of 2 on there, a concern if you like. Items 5, 7, 12, 18 and 22 are conduct problems. Some people don't like the language on the SDQ. I can perfectly understand that, and I'll show you a sheet in a moment where I really don't like the language on it. But at the end of the day, it's just giving us a measure of things. So this one is I get angry, I do as I'm told, I fight a lot, accused of lying or cheating, I take things that are not mine. And you will notice that they flip the scale sometimes. So there isn't that habit of sometimes going down and ticking everything on the right hand side because we think that's the most severe. Because actually on this one it's been flipped the other way round. So this one you would get the 2 if it is never actually happening. We have a hyperactivity scale, we have a peer problem scale, and we have a pro-social scale on there as well. So we take those and we get a total score, and it's from 0 to 40. we get the externalising, internalising scores, which are both from 0 to 20, and then we generate an impact score. So if we filled in that impact statement, that second page, we can score that as well. So we've got 0 to 10s and 0 to 6s, depending whether it's the parent report or the teacher report. And again, we've got that if it's happening a great deal, we give it 2 points, and if it's not happening at all, we give it 0. And put all that information together, and we then get some cut-off things. Now, this cannot be used to diagnose anything, and that is such an important statement. I'm going to say it again. It cannot be used by a SENCO in a school to diagnose anything. It might be given to you by CAMS and they give you a diagnosis at some point, but they are professionals in the field and they're using other things as well. But we are not professionals in that field. We're simply using it to get an idea of what is going on. So here we have got the scores for 4 to 17-year-olds, not validated for 18 plus. Most of us are working with 4 to 17-year-olds, so that's okay. And this is where I don't like it, because it uses the word abnormal. So I have got an abnormal score, if you like. So we have got the parent completed SDQ. If their total score is 0 to 13, they are, quote, normal. If they are borderline, if it's 14 to 16, and they are, according to this, abnormal if it is 17 to 40. So of all of those points available, if they get 17, 18 onwards, we're saying that there is a difficulty somewhere. However, what you can also do is then break that down into those different categories. So we've got that emotional problems. Do we think the child has got emotional difficulties, our SEMH children? And if they're scoring between 5 and 10 out of the possible 10 points that's available there, then we're saying actually, yes, that's an abnormal score. Now over on the right hand side here, you'll see this new 4-band categorisation is what they've called it. So we've got close to average, slightly raised, slightly lowered, high or very high. And that's probably better language to use. So if we're scoring 7 to 10, we're saying we have very high emotional problems present. Possibly. Again, we've got conduct problems, we've got hyperactivity, peer problems, pro-social, and that impact score. So what's going on around in the background, if we're scoring between 2 and 10, that is having more of an impact on our students than if we're only scoring 1 on there. So the teacher completed one, again, very slightly different. The scores vary a little bit, not by an awful lot, but just a little bit, just enough to make us go back and check it. And if they've completed it themselves, we've got that self-audit as well in there. So just a reminder, you can find that information over on Youth in Mind, so www.youthinmind.com. You're looking for the SDQ, you're looking for the paper-based version, downloading it in the language that you require, and if I just click to show you a different language just for the fun of it, here we have our Polish one. You don't always get all of the different versions for them, so if you want the impact statement for this, we only have these ones. It assumes that we are marking in English, so you still use the same mark scheme, but you download that one, have a look at that, fill that one in, or give it the child or the parent or the teacher to fill in. We've got those there, and then you're going along and you're actually analysing that information from those scores to come up with perhaps where those difficulties lie, to suggest what you need to do to address something. So if they're incredibly hyperactive, maybe you could use that as evidence to send to the paediatrician to say, maybe we need to investigate ADHD or some other difficulties. Or if we've got emotional scores that are high in there, maybe we're going to be looking at a nurture programme or something else to go in place. So the SDQ, all in all, is a really useful tool. Free to access, free to use. If you want to, you can use their online analysis system, or you can just sit and mark it by hand. It's just as quick and easy to do. And just a way to get that information that in some schools we're really, really lacking. Thanks for watching, everyone.